Chairman McClendon, Vice Chair Robinson.
Here.
Mrs. Hill.
Here.
Mrs. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Perez.
Present.
Mr. Smith. Mrs. Thurman.
Here.
Mr. Walker.
Here.
Mr. Wingate.
Here.
Mr. Macon. Superintendent Dr. Robertson.
Here.
All right. For tonight's flag and meditation, we have Dr. Ethan Hildreth from the principal of East Hamilton Middle School. Welcome.
Agenda.
We need to approve the agenda first.
I am so sorry.
It's okay.
Yep.
You know.
All right. We need to, as Ms. Ford said, we need to approve the agenda. We do have the following amendments added to the agenda. Under item X, delegations, we're going to remove item C, Mrs. Scarlin Valderez. She's unable to attend. But we will be adding Mrs. Heather Madro speaking regarding the substitute stipend. And we will have her speak right before board matters. All right.
And
I
the
move
other
to
part that's
approve
in-
the agenda.
The other part that's in black there before.
Oh.
Yeah, it's about the memo.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That also.
I gotcha. Also under board matters, item 9, board matters A1, employee pay increases and rate changes. Replace current memo with updated memo provided and remove effective date.
Mhm.
Okay. There are actually 2 effective dates in the memo, one related to the raises and the second related to the fee increases. Okay. Does everybody have that and follow that? Okay. All right.
Now it's.
All right. May I have a motion?
I move.
Second.
Thank you. All right, roll call.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Wingate,
Yes.
Chairman McClendon absent.
Okay. All yours.
Thank you. Members of the board, colleagues, and members of the public, thank you for permitting East Hamilton Middle School to be here this evening. We're very proud of our students who are going to represent us for the Pledge of Allegiance, as well as for the reflection on the topic of resiliency, which I think is very timely and apt for all of us. So it's my pleasure to introduce, representing our 8th grade, Cullen Henry, our 7th grade, Cole Ward, and our 6th grade, Diksha Patel, who is en route. And we look forward to hearing from each one of them. But first, Cole Ward will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, board members. My name is Cullen Henry. I'm an 8th grade student at East Hamilton. When I was asked to speak at this board meeting and was given the theme of being resilient, I knew who I would talk about. Speaking on this topic came easy to me as I've had to spend the majority of my middle school career in the current pandemic and have had to be resilient to succeed, much like Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt was born in New York City with asthma and grew up being sick most of the time. Most people born sickly would struggle to survive, with the time period being so tough on children, but not Teddy. He decided that even though he had been diagnosed with serious heart illnesses, he would spend his time doing what he wanted. Once he began playing difficult sports, he realized that even if his life was cut short, he would still live life to the fullest. Thankfully, he lived past young adulthood and went on to study at Harvard before going into New York politics. Years later, a tragedy would strike in his life when his wife and his mother would die on the same day. After this event, he was destroyed, and to refocus, he helped stop corruption in the New York City government. He would later remarry and run for mayor of New York. He would lose the election and would go on to fight in the Spanish-American War before returning to New York and running for governor. He would win this election and would continue his task of governor until the death of William McKinley's running mate in the 1900 election. Hearing this, Theodore Roosevelt decided that he would run for vice president and resigned. Roosevelt and McKinley won, making McKinley president for a second term. Sadly, he was shot only 6 months into his second term, making Theodore Roosevelt president at the age of 42. In his presidency, he would commission the Panama Canal, along with limiting corporations and making the national parks. He would win a second term and would not run in 1908. He did, however, run in the 1912 election, in which he would give a famous speech in Milwaukee. He would get shot before he could give this speech, however, but in a great show of resilience, he would continue to give this speech. He didn't win the 1912 election and would quit politics for the most part. One night, he suffered some breathing problems and would pass away early the next morning at the age of 60. The vice president at the time even said, "Death had to take Roosevelt sleeping, for if he had been awake, there would have been a fight." Although he didn't live as long as other presidents, I think we should all try to follow his lead, as if he could overcome his childhood illness, personal tragedy, and career hardships to become one of the greatest presidents. Adults and children alike can overcome this current pandemic and push through the trials the pandemic has produced. Thank you for your time this evening and for this experience.
Good evening, board members. My name is Cole Ward. I'm in the 7th grade, and I also attend East Hamilton Middle School. Today, I've been called upon to speak to you guys about resilience and what resilience means. When you look the word resilience up, the definition provided is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and our toughness. My perspective or outlook on the word is simply the phrase bounce back. Resiliency could relate to a lot of society circumstances. Some may even be some of your situations. Being able to, whether you're being resilient in a sport, being able to keep your head up after a tough loss, moving on for that next game. You may even be resilient in the classroom after that bad grade on the assignment you know you could have done better on. Are you going to get down on yourself or feel sorry for yourself, complain and make that same mistake? Or are you going to make sure you won't get another bad grade and you pay attention in class, you participate, and you study? Resilience is just letting the past go and moving on. The word resilience itself can mean a lot to someone. It is the key to many people's problems, but they may not know it yet. It is deep inside of them, but they may not show it yet. To be honest, I think everyone should have the desire to be resilient. In life, we are faced with numerous of challenges. When we fail one of these challenges, we as people tend to give up. The biggest challenge in life currently is the pandemic. COVID-19 has affected all of us in some type of way. Some may have been affected more harshly than others, but everyone has had something drastically changed in their life because of COVID. Now you may ask, what does resilience have to do with the pandemic? Which is a good question. Resilience is the perfect response to COVID. Coronavirus is a huge difficulty and our toughness, right? The virus has taken away plenty of opportunities and memories that would have occurred, not to mention the death of loved ones. To sum up about COVID, it's the worst. But with all that, do we give up? Do we stop? Do we let the challenge defeat us? Or do we bounce back, we persevere, and recover quickly? Resilience is the answer to all the challenges we as people face. Just keep in mind when times get tough, and you're faced with challenges, and you just feel like giving up, be resilient. Thank you for your time this evening. Getting to speak in front of the board was a pleasure and a great experience. Thank you.
I want to thank each of you for your kind attention to Cullen as well as Cole. We're tremendously proud of each of these students, as well as all of our students at East Hamilton Middle School and across the Hamilton County Schools District. I think you see in the words they shared this evening the tremendous capability, the tremendous care that each one of them have in the work they do and the message they share. And this is our final speaker this evening. Please welcome her. As more than anyone, she exemplifies resiliency.
Good evening, board members. My name is Diksha. I go to East Hamilton Middle School. I'm in 6th grade. Being resilient is not just the strength of one individual. Sometimes it takes a family coming together to show resilience. It started on my dad's birthday in July. My brother told my mom that he didn't feel good. My mom put him in bed. Later that night, I woke up and saw the bathroom light on. My mom was with my brother. He was up all night. The next morning, my mom took my brother to the doctor's office. The doctor said he had appendicitis. My mom was scared when she heard. She called my dad and told him the news. My parents couldn't believe it. The doctor said to go to the emergency room. On the way there, my mom called me to share the news. I was worried and asked if everything would be okay. She explained that she wasn't sure and she would call me back. My dad and I waited for my mom to call. Several hours had passed before I learned that he was transferred to Erlanger Children's Hospital. There, my brother underwent blood work, an x-ray, and a CT scan. We soon learned that doctors had to remove his appendix. As a family, we started packing for my brother's surgery. We packed up blankets, jackets, socks, etc. My parents would be in the hospital and I would be at my grandparents' house. I had to be cooperative. I spent about 5 days at their house. I wasn't able to see my mom, dad, or brother because of COVID. We got to give them food, but that was only once. It was hard not to see my family. On the day of the surgery, I was really scared that something would happen to my brother. The surgery was 2 hours long. I wasn't able to see my brother for 5 days. Once he came out of surgery, we had to wait for him to wake up. He was really weak after the surgery. He stayed at the hospital for an additional 3 days. He was barely able to move. He was on bed rest for a couple of days. When we went back home, everyone had to help him with many things. He also tried to do as much work as he could on his own. It was a hard time for our family. We all had to try our best to be supportive of each other. It was important to be cooperative and easygoing. We all were glad to be home again. Sometimes being resilient is not for one person only. Sometimes it takes a whole family to show resilience. Getting to speak in front of the board was a great experience. Thank you for your time this evening.
On behalf of East Hamilton Middle School, our students, our staff, our community, thank you again.
Thank you. You all did a wonderful job. Okay, we'll move into presentations. We have a presentation from Shannon Moody on Future Ready. I'm sorry, does somebody want to say something? Oh, you do want, okay. No, I had asked.
Oh, I'll be happy to. Dr. Hildreth, thank you for bringing your staff tonight and students, and you guys always make our community proud, so thank you guys for all you do.
Okay. All right, Shannon Moody, we will have you for, are you giving the
We're
presentation?
switching it up. It's going to be Dr.
Okay.
Stewart and I, so we're
Great.
throwing you a curveball.
No, I mean, we are ready for surprises tonight.
Yeah, thank
Please.
you for the short time. We wanted to give a quick update. If you remember back during the interview process, I provided a 100-day transition plan for you and wanted to give you a quick update on our plans for that and some adjustments that we've made, and just to give you an idea of how we're going to move forward. So, as always, we want to go back to our just cause and this idea that all children thrive and experience a future without limits. That's something that we're committed to as a district, and invite our community partners and parents and families to come alongside us as we strive for that aspirational goal. Again, I think part of the discussion about a transition plan was the status of Future Ready 2023, and want to reaffirm that as an administrative team, we are committed to seeing Future Ready 2023 to its end, and we will continue to provide updates. We'll have one in the coming weeks, and we'll continue to push towards the goals that are set forth in Future Ready 2023. So if you remember in the 100-day plan that I provided you, there were really 4 main areas of focus that I mentioned, and put some ideas around how we would move forward with these. One of them was governance and district alignment, this idea of making sure that the school board, administration, school administration, teachers, that as a district we're aligned. And that's something that's going to be extremely important for us moving forward. We talked a lot about a productive culture. We know that this has been a difficult time, and I couldn't have asked for a better intro than the theme of resilience, and we need to work towards making sure that our staffs are appreciated and that we're building a productive district culture. Talked a lot about an effective transition. It's an interesting time to transition when we're talking January in the middle of a school year, so we'll hit on that a little bit. And then finally, especially considering the second semester, we have to remain focused on student outcomes. So we've broken this up into 3 phases, and I'm going to ask Dr. Stewart to walk us through the specifics of each. But the first phase we're considering this month is building relationships with the board, within our team, with schools, community members, government officials, etc. Gathering input is what we're looking at for February, and then finally in March, taking what we've learned from that and applying it to our transition forward.
So phase 1 is, we're right in the middle of phase 1, this building relationships component. And I think one of the things that was really important for Dr. Robertson and myself as a part of his team is to deepen the relationships that exist, as well as expand on future relationships. And so certainly he's worked hard to build relationships with each of you and set up a cadence for meeting with you. Also making sure that he is getting to know the county government and making sure that he's building the relationships there that need to be established in order to continue the work that we're doing. And then, of course, meeting with school leaders and community members. One of the very first things Dr. Robertson did was hold those principal listening sessions, right there at the end of the first semester, really committed to making sure that the leader voice, what was happening in the schools, was elevated as we began this process of building relationships and deepening relationships. Phase 2 is around gathering input. So I always think, as we build relationships with people, so much of that process is to listen, right, and to hear what they have to offer. And so during this phase, which will happen through the month of February, we're going to be doing some analysis of the learning communities and the strengths and opportunities that we see in each of the 5 learning communities. You know how our district has had such a strong cadence around advisory groups, the principal advisory groups, the teachers, the students, making sure that those groups hold and continue in this input cycle. Holding listening sessions in each of the departments that we have in the district. Again, asking those really important questions. What's going well? What's not? What are the challenges? What supports do you need to move this work forward? And then the last piece here is to build a transition team. And I think one of the things in an input cycle is to make sure that the voices of this entire county are represented in a transition team and ensure that those voices are at the table. And so this is a signature part of phase 2. So there are 6 transition teams or transition committees for this input phase, and they're listed up here. You should see some strong alignment to Future Ready 2023, as you might expect. But on each of these transition committees, there's representation from the district as well as the community at large. And so they are 8 to 10 member teams that are going to meet regularly and then report back during the month of March. So you can see that we have transition teams around student learning, community partnerships. That third one there with Students Thrive, that is, I think about our young people and resilience. It's making sure that the whole child is cared for deeply. That purposeful community, again, I think this is something Dr. Robertson made note of as he opened, but making sure that the district culture is where we need it to be. The language inside Hamilton County is purposeful community, is ensuring that our staff are thriving, that they are getting what they need, that they feel connected to each other and connected in the work. And so that purposeful community group will really be looking at that. What are the staff needs and how can we meet them? Parent engagement, we want to reimagine some of this. I think if COVID has taught us anything, it has taught us that Zoom is a tremendously good tool for getting parents involved. We've been able to engage parents in lots of different ways through different methods. And so, again, to reimagine and to deepen that space. And then that last bullet there, diversity, equity, and inclusion. This particular committee, what we're going to ask them to do is to really consider the work of those other 5 committees and really ask the question, how do we ensure that as we consider all the things that are discussed in those other committees, that diversity, equity, and inclusion are the lens that we look through and make recommendations with. So, and then the last phase, application of learning. I think if you're building relationships and gathering input, you gain credibility when you apply what you've heard, right? And so during the month of March, it will be just that. We will begin to start thinking about how to build on that Future Ready 2023 plan. We think we're really well situated in a really, really strong strategic plan to early in Dr. Robertson's tenure to really gather input as we begin to think about what the next strategic plan might look like. Asking questions around district alignment. Are we organized the way that we need to be? Are we meeting the needs of our communities and our schools? Making adjustments, of course, based on current data, and of course, making sure that we have the resources and supports for school leaders and teachers, again, centering the work that's happening in schools.
So I, again, think that it's a really unique time to transition, and we put together a timeline of just some things that you can expect to see coming. I think what fits nicely together is this input cycle aligns well with our budget cycle. And so we're going to start, obviously, in February, some listening sessions and some budget work sessions that will lead through the end of April. But some of these items are going to work together and work side by side as we go through that. We're looking to nail down the State of the System address tentatively for February the 15th. We are looking at obviously doing that virtual for a number of reasons, just kind of currently where we are. But what we saw last year with the virtual session is it was probably the most watched and most well-attended state of the system address that we've had in 3 years. So we'll have more information coming from there. Again, report out on the transition and do some budget workshops through February, March. What I hope that this transition does is obviously it informs us with our transition, informs us with our budget. But again, to put on the radar, on the board's radar, Future Ready 2023 is not that far away in terms of its end. I feel strongly that at the end of this will provide us kind of some precursor information for how we move forward beyond Future Ready 2023. And then as a board and administration, late spring, we really need to start digging in to developing a new Future Ready 23, a new strategic plan beyond Future Ready 2023. And before I take questions, I want to publicly recognize the school board on School Board Appreciation Week. We are thankful for you guys and presented you with something that we thought was fitting for the times. We know so many kids have had to bring water bottles to school, and so we wanted to present you with something that would hopefully be useful for you, but just a small token of our appreciation to everything that you have done for this school system and for the community. It's been nice to be able to go meet community members and talk to people and to be able to praise the work of this board. So just a small token of appreciation to you. And at this time, we'll take any questions that you may have.
All right. All right, Mrs. Hill?
Well, first, thank you so much for the water bottle. I do love to show my Hamilton County School spirit, and we'll use it regularly. Appreciate this summary of the way that you all plan to move forward in the coming months. One thing I just want to put a fine point on, and you and I have discussed it, is our work with community partners has come a very long way over the last several years. And what I've witnessed is a move from Hamilton County being either not even at the table or quiet to being a leading voice at the table. And I know that our community partners are eager to hear from Hamilton County Schools and understand where they fit in the work that we're going to be doing. So I do encourage you to continue to take that role of leadership moving forward.
Mr. Perez?
Just very quickly, in your approach, I'm sure you've thought of it. I just want to remind you if you haven't, but we have a growing Latino community, and very often in some of these conversations, the Latino community is not as engaged as they should with the representation they have in our schools. So I just encourage, and it's complicated, and we know that, but I just encourage you to find ways to engage the parents, especially beyond, and I know, Dr. Drake, you do that, but I just want to point it out again, so thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Well, I'll just add a couple comments. Under the building relationships, I was thinking about your emphasis on meeting with board members, but I did want to ask that maybe you guys think through how you can strategically leverage and use our board committees maybe more. I mean, we have some committees that are formed for some pretty pressing topics, and I just think there's opportunity there to really think through that. And also in regards to gathering input and just listening, I mean, I just think that let's see, page, I missed it, but either way, like really engaging parents I think is crucial right now. You know, before Dr. Towns transitioned out, I had a long conversation with her about how I think that parents have forgotten what it's like to be in our school buildings, and I think that there's, you know, we've just had the last 2 years of like really being engaged with our student schools, and I think we've gotten really used to Zoom, and like as much as I think that that's a great tool too, I do think that there's like a lot of value in being in person and touching and feeling and really understanding what's happening in our student schools, in their classrooms specifically. I had a conference with my kindergartner's teacher on Friday, and that was the first time that I had been invited into my children's school in 18 months or 2 years. I'm really not even sure anymore. So I just think that whenever you're thinking about how to really continue to engage the community and parent groups, like how can we continue to emphasize, like, come into our buildings and really understand what's going on with our students. So, all right. Okay, we'll move on. Okay, we'll move into our board member disclaimer statement. So if you'd like to make the statement just light your light. All right. Do you go down the line, or do I?
Just, you do.
Okay, great. Mrs. Thurman?
Okay. I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system, that the board's vote on the budget and some of the policies may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system and that the board's vote on budget policies, etc., may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
Go ahead. Yes.
I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system and that the board's vote on budget policies, etc., may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
I declare that I have relatives who work for the school system, and that the board's vote on budget policies and anything else may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system.
Great. I declare that I have a relative who works for the school system and that the board's vote on budget policies, etc., may have an effect on my relative's employment. Even so, I hereby certify that I will cast my vote in the best interest of the school system. All good? Okay. All right, we'll move into the approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second. All right. Would anyone like to pull anything from the agenda?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Just 1B1, Howard High and Best T. Shepherd portable purchase.
Okay. Mrs. Hill?
I'd like to pull 7D3B, specifically looking at the report on the fund balance analysis.
Okay. Mrs. Thurman? Oh, that's okay. And Mrs. Jones, did you have something? Okay. All right. Does anybody else have anything? Okay. All right. Well, let's go over item 1B1.
We need,
We do that first. Okay. I've only been here for 5 years. I mean, I know. Okay. Roll call.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Perez.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Wingate.
Yes.
Okay. We'll move into Mr. Perez's item 1B1, Best T. Shepherd portables.
Best T. and Howard.
And Howard.
So I understand why we're purchasing them. I understand why it makes sense. I am afraid or concerned that when you do purchase a portable, the portable becomes the solution because we've already spent the money. And so I'd just like to hear beyond the portables, what is the plan and what would we be doing?
So in terms of the plans that specifically Best T. Shepherd and Howard, we've obviously experienced rapid growth at Howard, and it's to the point that we had to get some relief. Obviously, everything is depending on funding, right? And so, we do need to consider in the next probably 5 years what we're going to do different at Howard, because if we continue to experience this growth, the portables aren't going to help. In terms of Best T. Shepherd, I think that Best T. Shepherd will probably be in okay shape with these portables for the next several years, and understanding it's not where we want long term, but where we are with facilities, putting new portables in place to us is a viable solution. One of the reasons, if you go back 3 or 4 years ago, we started having these conversations about portables, and a lot of people are considering the old portables that we've had, and the ones that we're putting now at schools are very nice situations for classrooms. They have 2 classrooms on each side. There's private restrooms in between, so they're almost self-contained spaces. So I want to be clear that we're not putting old portables. These are really quality learning environments. But as always with our facilities plan, we've got to consider what the real solution is at Howard.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that topic from the board? All right. Move to the next item. Mrs. Hill. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Do you want to put it back on the agenda? Do you have a motion to put it back on the?
Move to approve.
Just move to approve it. Yeah.
Move to approve.
Second.
Yeah, I just want to say that, like, I think there should be a script. Like, I'm just going to be very honest. Like, this is crazy. Yeah. So.
You're doing
Right.
a great job.
Well, we got to stop. You're good.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Wingate.
Yes.
Okay, the next item, item 7D, 3D, report on fund balance.
Yes, thank you guys for including this on the agenda for tonight. The thing I wanted to point out on this fund balance analysis that stood out to me is the line item that is assigned for education technology money. So we have built up over the years monies in this part of the fund, and we've used it on a relatively regular basis to make large technology purchases as we've moved to having more devices in our schools. But moving forward, we all know how important it is that we have students with devices. And so I spoke with Dr. Robertson, and he advised me that it's going to be costing us every year about $3.6 million to add new devices to the system. So they age out, right? If you could just talk us through that, Dr. Robertson,
Yes.
so that we can kind of generate an awareness, because right now we're using ESSER dollars, which is one-time money, for something that ultimately is going to become a necessary ongoing expense.
So this conversation started several years ago, and where we are with kind of getting on a good schedule of replenishing devices is each 6th grader and every 9th grader should get a new device. And so a 6th grader should get a device, keep it with them for 3 years, and then in 9th grade get a new device, keep it with them through the end of 12th grade. So when you look at that number, it comes to, on average, if you consider what we're spending per device and about the average number of 6th and 9th graders we have, it comes somewhere between $3.2 and $3.6 million. Mary Ellen and I have been talking about this, and it's a conversation that past administrations have had about the need to get this as a recurring item in our budget instead of just building up fund balance and doing it that way. We are working towards that. We're not there. We've got a small window with ESSER. We've got about, I think, just over 3.6 set aside in ESSER funds to make the next purchase. You see in this fund balance, we've got about $1 million in fund balance set aside for technology. So we've got a little bit of a window, but the goal is to work to get this as a recurring item in the budget. Mary Ellen, I don't know if I missed anything on that.
Thank you for that. And what about staff devices? Where does that fit into the 3.6? And is there any plan to renew staff devices more often than every
And I believe,
eon?
I think the staff devices are on a lease, and so the lease is built into the base budget. So
Okay,
those are
terrific.
replenished on cycle.
So okay, wonderful. That's all. Move to approve.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call. Or-
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes?
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Wingate.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move into administrative business matters. Mr. Eves with a transportation, or director of transport, or first student contract, 1-year extension. Oh, no, was that part of the consent agenda? I'm sorry.
No.
We'll move, okay, actually, I'm sorry, we'll move into our first delegate, Heather Modro.
No, what am I
You're
missing?
right.
You were right.
Administrative business
Oh.
matters.
You were
All
correct.
right.
That wasn't
But
part
we
of the
need to vote.
Okay, good, all right.
agenda.
Need to ask. for
Okay,
motion.
yep. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Call for the question.
Ask if there's any discussion.
Is there any discussion? Yes?
Yeah,
Ms. Thurman?
just, I know there are a lot more people probably watching now than watch on Monday night. Just want to clarify a little bit about what this is and what kind of increase there is. Justin, we did discuss this on Monday night, and about the possibility of adding maybe more contract drivers, something, the discussion we're going to have at a later date. But if you want to address that again,
Yeah,
please.
sure. So this is a 1-year renewal. The original contract was 3 years with option to renew for a year. So this is us asking or recommending that we go with that 1-year renewal. First Student has done a really good job, especially in terms of safety, have exceeded the KPIs in Future Ready 2023. Some of the discussion on Monday centered around the cost increase that's in each contract, and it's 3%. We also discussed routes and the opportunity moving beyond this year to reconsider the number of routes. Currently, First Student has, I think, 151 or 150 routes. Our other routes are, of course, covered by contractors. So right now, what we're asking or seeking your approval for is to continue this contract for 1 more year, knowing that we're going to have to put out an RFP probably in, I'd say, October, November of this year. And then at that point, we could reconsider how many routes we want to put in the RFP.
And also, Justin, we discussed that they did put in a lot of their own money this year, but the
Yes, ma'am. They-
sanitizing and lots of things. Just want people to
Yeah,
understand.
they,
what else going on.
right at the start of the pandemic, when we didn't quite know our funding situation, they agreed to cut that increase in half and then use their own labor and supplies to disinfect buses each day during the 2021 school year.
Thank you.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Perez,
Yes?
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Wingate.
Yes.
All right, now we will have our first delegate. I think so. I think so. All right, and Mrs. Hill has actually agreed to take your time and to.
Sure. All right. Thank you for your interest in addressing the Hamilton County Board of Education. During your presentation, please address the board as a whole, not individual board members or administrators. Also, please do not present complaints or concerns you have about an individual employee of the school system. If you wish to voice those complaints and concerns, you should contact the central office and ask for a meeting with the superintendent, since the superintendent is responsible for individual employees. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. I will tell you when you have 1 minute left, and I will set an alarm that'll make a noise also. If you're not looking at me at 1 minute, that is not, that's on you.
I got
Okay?
it. All right.
All right, and at city council, there's a timer and they can see it. It's a countdown clock. Here we go. Ready?
All right.
Go.
Good evening, school board members. In November 2019, I came to talk to you about a topic that is finally being proposed tonight, compensating teachers who take on additional students in classes when there are not enough substitutes to fill the positions. Over 2 years ago, I proposed the idea of splitting the cost of a sub to give to the teachers who take on extra students in classes. Finally, now that we are in crisis mode, something might get done to recognize this problem and what your staff does to keep the schools running during survival mode. We really are in survival mode. Last week we had 10 unfilled sub positions at my school, and I know we're not an exception. The solution was to have one subless class from every grade level split into a different grade, different classes, although one grade did go to a different grade. An assistant covered the kindergarten class, an RTI interventionist covered another class, literacy and math coaches rotated to finish covering another class, and finally the assistant principal taught PE class so that those classes weren't able to be merged with the other related arts class. Whew. Kudos to that admin who figured it all out so that every student was supervised during the entire time. Related arts teachers, they always get extra students. One teacher told me she had 38 students last week. I've heard of 34 kindergartners in a class. That's a lot. Yikes. When ESOL or XED our staff are out and we don't have a sub, there are no services. No special ed services. That's a legal issue. Even if we do manage to get a sub, that person is then pulled from ours and given to a gen ed classroom. And I get it. It's so much easier just to cancel services than to split a class. In the self-contained setting for XED, assistant teachers are then teaching. They are doing their jobs of theirs and the teacher's job for less money that they can make doing retail or fast food jobs. I really do wish that this policy did pay stipends for the teaching assistants as well. It does state certified classroom staff. They're not included in this new policy. For years, they have covered when the teacher is out, including longer maternity leaves. They don't get paid enough to do their job and the teacher's job. There is a teacher in our school now who did from August to Thanksgiving lesson plans, data, everything. She didn't get paid a dime more than she normally does. The lack of subs creates a strain on everyone. How many of your staff are ready to quit because this survival mode has taken on a great toll and it's unsustainable? I've seen teachers scramble in the mornings to make extra copies for the students that they're getting that day and to pull in chairs and desks. Last week, when 4 first grade teachers were out, which is half, they sent out an email plea to make sure that all of the students got from one end of the building to the other at dismissal. Several teachers did answer that call. We do it because we care about the safety of the students and because you know it's only a matter of time before you're going to be out and you need your colleagues' help. Contrary to what was said Tuesday, teachers do not volunteer to give up their lunch or planning periods to cover classes. We are voluntold. All last year, we could only fill the cafeteria 50%, so the rest of the classes ate in their classroom. Teachers gave up their lunchtime to eat with their own class, and non-homeroom teachers also rotated to give those teachers a break. When I approached admin about the legality of a duty-free lunch, I was told, this is the best we could come up with. If you can think of something different, I'm all ears. Now, it might seem like I'm whining, but as the XED teacher, I've been the least impacted so far. I just have the bigger voice. I'm here because of the kids. None of this is beneficial for our students. They walk into the classroom every morning not knowing if their teacher's going to be there, if they get to stay with their classmates, or if they're a split. If they go to another classroom, what will they be learning? Will they follow the academics of the new classroom? Or will they be given a packet and a Chromebook and hopefully stay busy enough to stay out of trouble? When I'm absent, I don't get a sub. My assistant stays in the classroom with the students who need the most intensive supports. That means the 7 classrooms that she goes into for inclusion don't get the help they need. My 25 students that pop in and out for 30 minutes at a time don't get their reading and math interventions. Not having subs hurts our students. So please, vote yes for the stipend and be certain that it includes all staff who take on extra duties, including the classified staff, such as our amazing, talented educational assistants and related arts staff, which are not
Thank you.
all
Your time is
certified
up.
teachers. We need help, please.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping time. All right, moving into board matters. Our first item is employee pay increases and rate changes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right.
I'm sorry, who motioned that?
Mr. Perez. Okay, and do we have discussion? Mr. Walker?
No, we talked about this.
Never mind.
Okay, Mrs. Thurman?
Yes, so we discussed this at length on Tuesday. I did make a call to Justin, and also I called Scott today to get a little bit of clarity on something. I just want to bring something up. I know that we were talking about having a hard time hiring people, workers for school-age childcare. And I've always thought that cafeteria workers would just be the perfect people to work in childcare because they're getting finished about the time school's over, or really before school's over, and they can go to childcare and work. Which brings on a few other problems that's what I call Scott about. Because if they get over 40 hours, then it gets into overtime. And what rate would they get paid? Now, my question, Scott, I didn't ask you this today, but what is the difference in the rate? I guess there are different rates in the cafeteria as child care workers. Do they get paid about the same, or is there a big difference?
Give me a
So if that would be a problem, I should have asked you this before, but I just happened to think there's probably not a whole lot of difference, because if they get over 40 hours, then we have to maybe.
It becomes a blended rate.
It becomes a blended rate, or the board could decide to pay them
The higher rate.
the higher rate.
Right.
But we can't pay them the lower rate, but it has to be the higher rate.
Yeah.
By law. So, those are things the board might want to consider doing in order to get some of the people who have already been vetted and already been, already gone through the process of being hired and already worked for the school system. Penny, you're shaking your head. Am I missing something here that maybe we?
No, and no, you're right, and I think that's a great item to explore. Scott and I talked about it this morning. I think after y'all spoke, the current issue that we have that I talked to our payroll supervisor about this morning, and we're going to explore with Munis and maybe an outside consultant that we have, is that our food service and school nutrition employees, their timekeeping system is different than the one that we use for the rest of the district. And so to pull that into payroll, it wouldn't alert them. They would have to manually handle it. But there is someone that we're working with now with a new system who could possibly help us with a solution. So we're going to explore that for sure.
Okay, I think that's something we might need
Yeah,
to look at, because I
agree.
think that may alleviate some of the problems that we have trying
Sure.
to hire some people, because it seems like they come into a roadblock a lot of times when they want to
Mhm.
do that. They've done that. But I think that's something the board needs to be aware of, that maybe
Yeah.
we might need to look at.
Yeah, so we're going to dig into that. Thank you.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, for context, what Ms. Thurman's referencing is that many, many years ago, the board established a procedure where if you worked in one area of the system, you generally didn't work, if you were an hourly employee, you wouldn't work somewhere else in the system as well, because then if you went over 40 hours, it triggers overtime entitlement, and then you've got to figure out what the overtime rate would be, and you have to average the pay over the previous 40 hours worked. And depending upon how much time you spent doing your first job versus how much time you spent doing your second job, your average rate could change literally every single week. You might never have the same rate of pay every week. And this is one of those things that the federal government takes very, very seriously, because in times past, employers would abuse their employees. And so this board decided, I think it was probably 22 years ago, if I remember correctly, because we had some wage and hour violations, that we were just going to keep it separate. So that's what Ms. Thurman's referring to. We now have the technology where maybe if we can get the two systems to talk, we can track this. So it may be that we can do something that we haven't been able to do previously.
All right, any more discussion? No? Okay, we call.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes?
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move into item B, certified staff supplement pay during COVID pandemic. Do I have a Motion to approve? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. Got Mrs. Jones and then Mr. Perez? No? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Walker.
Thank you. I know I rarely push the button over there. When I do, I get
Me
booed.
too.
I'm in a new seat, so
I've got it.
I'm like just getting sidelined here.
We talked about this on Tuesday, and we referenced staff being paid 1/7. Is there accountability for schools that are on block schedule? And that would be 1/4, so is that already built in
Yes,
there?
sir. Yes. So it depends on, like, if a classroom is divided in half, let's say we take Sonia's classroom and she's not there that day, we can't find a sub, and so they're divided between myself and Neely, then I would get half and she would get half. Or if I'm just covering a class period of the day and Neely covers the other class period, then that, if there's 7 class periods there, then it may be 1/7. Or if you're at a high school and they're a block and you cover one full block, it may be 1/4.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
just
accounted
depending on
for.
what they
Yeah,
cover.
that's,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Yeah.
Mr. Perez?
So since it's certified classroom staff, help me understand, related arts teachers, if they cover substitutions, are they also entitled?
Related arts teachers are
Okay, I
certified
just
staff,
wanted to
yes,
make
sir.
sure, because I got asked that question, so I want to make sure that's the case. I do agree with Ms. Modrow as she referred to pretty much anybody. Like, I guess we're grabbing people from all over who are basically playing the role as substitutes. I'm not going to make a motion to amend that, but I do want to bring that up because we need to consider it for maybe another motion in the future. But and again, just very briefly repeating what I said, this isn't a long-term solution
Right.
in any way, shape, or form. As you know, people are going around talking about the BEP formula and how to do that. We have to recognize as a community that we are no longer competing against literally grocery stores, retail stores, with the salaries we provide. So please reach out to your other elected officials and ask them to recognize the reality of growing costs in our community.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes, I had a note as well because I received a couple of phone calls from some educational assistance people in the classroom who said they had been taking on a couple of classes a day, and they don't get paid very much at all. So I do really think that is something that we do need to look at. I'm not, like I said, I don't know that we need to amend this one or if we need to look at it maybe at the next time or you know, and pay some back pay. I don't know how you keep up with that actually at this point. But I do think it's something we need to consider because some of them are taking on the classrooms and more than one day, you know, doing it for days at a time, a week at a time. So I think it's something we need to consider.
And two, Mary Ellen and I have talked from a budget standpoint as well, and one of the other things that we're continuing to look at, and we've been speaking with a compensation consultant, is looking at the pay for our educational assistants and how can we raise that and ensure that we don't have pay compression again. So she and I met yesterday, and then we have a follow-up meeting with him next week. So we hope to have more information on that as well and be able to figure out within the budget how we can bring to you, you know, a pay increase for the educational assistants.
Well, not just the educational assistants, but I tell you what, the people who work in the office.
Oh, absolutely. We're looking at all classified
yeah,
positions.
because there's some of those people.
We're looking
I wouldn't do what they
specifically
do
at the
for that money, no
clericals
way.
and attendance clerks
Yeah.
and, yes, all the classified staff. Yes, we are. Thank you.
There's one difference, Ms. Thurman, between certified staff who are being asked to do literally extra duty and classified employees who are hourly employees. Hourly employees are on the clock from when they get there to when they leave, and you know my daughter's an educational assistant in a special ed classroom.
Yeah.
You know, they have assigned duties all of the time. What this proposal does with teachers is they're actually being required effectively to work later in the day for planning or for they're postponing their planning time basically. So they're taking on additional duties during the day that they don't have an obligation to do. So I don't think anyone would dispute the fact that your educational assistants, like everyone else, has really been leaning into the oars and doing hard work. But the reason that this proposal is different is you're effectively extending the working day of teachers when they jump in to fill in for their colleagues during the day.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate again just what we said on Tuesday night, just valuing our employees and our teachers and what they're doing every day and how hard they're working. I'm the daughter of a retired educational assistant, and I know how hard my mother worked, and how, she worked hard every single day for every child, no matter what. And so, we want to be that voice for all employees and continue to advocate for them as best we can. So, thank you.
All right, call for the question.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Wingate?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move into our final delegations. We have Chrissy and Summer Essex and Jeanette O'Markell after that. Okay. Mrs. Hill will keep your time, and she'll give you the little rundown speech. Thank you.
Well, you've already heard the speech, so we won't. Okay, your time starts now. Thank you.
Thank you, Board, for letting us come speak. We are here to petition the Hamilton County School Board and Administration to change policies and procedures on how to handle bullying in the public schools. The zero tolerance policy that is noted in the Hamilton County School Handbook is being ignored. On page 13, under the zero tolerance offense, it clearly states that under state and federal law, a student who commits an assault on a teacher, principal, or administrator shall be expelled for 1 calendar year, but interestingly enough, it doesn't apply to a student if they're assaulted. On page 20 through 24 on the Acts Against Persons chart, it's very ambiguous and allows for liberal interpretation to the point of being useless as a guidance for punishment or discipline. Insiders have shared with me through Summer Cares, which is Summer's organization, that the system is broken when it comes to reporting incidents of violence against students. A politicized system appears to have encroached on the teachers regarding what they are expected to report regarding incidents of violence committed against students. Our teachers need to have the proper tools at their disposal to be able to instantly communicate with administration regarding ongoing violent incidents. This is sorely lacking. As a concerned parent of a child that has been bullied, harassed, and assaulted in the school system, who has a responsibility to protect them, I say this is enough and it needs to end now. What can we as parents do to help with these issues?
Have you ever been a victim of an assault and battery in school? Have you ever felt so alone because the people in school you are supposed to trust the most do nothing to help you? I was being bullied and harassed for 1.5 years by the same girl that assaulted me in November of 2020. I was scared and afraid to fight back because the principals, teachers, and school board administration told me if I defend myself, I could face suspension. So instead, I am just supposed to turn the other cheek. I had to leave school and finish the year out online and struggled daily with online school because I did not feel safe to come back to school. Instead of making the bully leave the school to learn online, I had to leave the school for safety reasons. I chose being homeschooled this year and the rest of my high school years because I do not trust schools or school systems to keep me safe. What would you do or how would you feel if it were your child that was assaulted in the school system? I would like to share with you my remonstrance called Unheard Voices by Summer Essex. When you are going to the bathroom at school to get ready for your soccer game and 2 bullies follow you into the bathroom and you retrieve yourself to the bathroom stall and lock it to get away from them, you find yourself violated because the bully slides underneath your locked bathroom stall to yell, "Do you want to hit me? Do you want to fight me?" Then she pushes you against the toilet. Then you find out it was videoed by another person and sent all over social media. I'm the one that suffered humiliation and embarrassment. I'm the one that was scared to step foot back in school to learn. I'm the one that kept my parents up at night crying. I'm the one that didn't want to eat. I'm the one that went into depression. I'm the one that doesn't trust teachers, principals, or anyone else in the school authority to keep me safe. I'm the one that had to leave school and learn remotely because I was embarrassed and scared to go back to school. I was the one that was told by school officials, if you fight back and defend yourself, you could face suspension. I'm the victim, yet the bullies get the free pass and get to continue to bully other students continually without getting expelled from school. It's time we children that are victims of bullying and assault take a stand and fight back. We will not let anyone take our rights from us. We will defend ourselves from being attacked or assaulted or bullied and not get into trouble any longer. If we need to defend ourselves, I will not let another person touch me without a fight, and I will not let another person bring me down without a fight. Thank you for your time and attention. May I approach you with my petition to effect change regarding bullying in Hamilton County Schools?
Summer got a petition we would like to present to you guys. It's 7.5 pages long. We are petitioning the school to change policies and procedures as to how bullying is being handled in our schools. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Summer, I just want to personally take the time to applaud you for your courage and your ability to come and advocate for yourself and other peers that probably have experienced or have had the same experience as you. That takes a lot of courage. I don't know, my heart hurts for you. I cannot stand a bully of any sort. I don't care what age you are. I don't care. I just do not like people that pick on people. I just think that's just I don't know. I can't say what I think right now about that, but I do not like a bully. And I will probably get on Dr. Robertson and Dr. Stewart's nerves about what we can do next steps for that, but I just do not find pleasure in that at all. And while we do try as best we can as a system to address these issues, there's always things that happen that we are not aware of or able to address. But I personally am going to take time out to look through these policies and to see what can be done or what we can suggest to our cabinet, because I know we do not perpetuate bullying, and we try to have procedures in place to address that. And I'm sorry that this has happened to you.
Chrissy, I know I've talked to you about this, and I know you went through all the channels. You called everyone I told you to call. You did everything I told you to do. I know you did that. First time I've ever seen your daughter, though, met your daughter. I appreciate you. I'm sorry you had to drop out of school. I didn't know that. But I tell you, nowhere in our policy should it be that you can't defend yourself. And I don't know who's telling you this, but there is no way that that's true. And I would really like to know the whole entire thing of who did through the line. That we have a student who has to quit school. That should not happen. I'm sorry, Chrissy. I appreciate you.
All right, our next delegate, Mrs. O'Markell.
Okay, without crying here. Okay. Your time starts now.
Good evening, Chairman, Board. I want to take this opportunity to thank you, the Board, for your hard work and to acknowledge that this is School Board Appreciation Month, not just week. So you get celebrated all month. And you'll see me later this month to appreciate you. We do appreciate your time and your efforts. I want to thank you for approving the supplemental pay for educators who are working extra by covering classes during this time, and your approval of the increase in pay for child care workers, and being willing to look into other supports as well. The supplemental pay for covering classes, as been said already, has been in discussion for 2 years, as it was happening at a smaller level prior to COVID. I met with Dr. Robertson this week and was pleased that he has already set this in motion. And I appreciate all that he is already doing to make sure educator and staff voices are elevated. Thank you also for the comments I've heard this week, showing that you have seen and heard educators in the buildings and across the district. It is so important that your staff feels seen, heard, and validated. The 100-day plan presented tonight is also very encouraging in that matter. We all know the current pace is not sustainable. As of today, there are 335 open positions posted, 400 employees out with COVID or contacts, and 6,513 students. It's higher than any that last year, and that doesn't include those who don't have COVID. Everyone is overworked and overwhelmed. Asking your staff to do any more has not been the answer. Educators are resilient, as the student said earlier, but they are going to keep going until they drop or quit, and that's not okay. We are seeing an increase across the country of those who are leaving the profession, a few who are wanting to become a part of education. It was already changing, but the past 2 years has seen a dramatic shift. We do not have an issue of learning loss. We have an issue of trying to keep up with an unrealistic goal in unrealistic times. The reason for this is not our fault. Trying to keep up with what would be a normal pace during this time is not sustainable. We don't need to go fully remote again, but we need flexibility. We need to focus on a realistic look at where our students are and where we can move them at a pace that is workable in this current environment while we prepare for a better time and not try to compare 2018 apples to 2022 oranges. We are more than a number, and learning is happening across Hamilton County. One test isn't going to show all the information. Moving the focus to funding our classrooms appropriately and paying our staff at a level that is comparable to other professions of their status will help us improve and meet the goals set. As we move into the budget season, we will continue to look at what we believe the state needs to provide. Education funding needs to drastically improve. That's another reason that we are losing educators. We need the staffing and the initiatives mandated to be fully funded. We know the BEP doesn't work, and we know this new initiative is unknown, but that's another topic. For now, we need to be looking at what we know we have. With a $3 billion state's general fund surplus in 2021 and an estimated $3.6 billion in surplus for this fiscal year, state government has the ability, without raising taxes, to make a substantial increase in education funding. TEA is advocating at the state level to recommend an increase of $1.25 billion in recurring state funding to any base of a new plan. This would be approximately $1,300 per student and would lift Tennessee into the mid-30s for our national education funding instead of the bottom 5. And the first time it would get us to the Southeast average. This is what we all need to advocate for with our legislators. This is a win for all. Again, thank you, and happy School Board Appreciation Month.
All right. Next on our agenda is events and announcements. We have parent-teacher conferences, January 24th to March 4th. Wednesday, February 9th will be a remote and asynchronous learning day. Monday, February 14th is the board agenda session, and we'll either have treats, cupcakes, candy, roses. Thank you. Those die, though, you know. Chocolate doesn't die.
That's true.
And then our next
That's a
board
good meal.
And then our next board meeting will be February 17th. So,
Ms. Chairman, if I may jump in here and kind of piggyback.
welcome.
I apologize. I'm going to tell you why I was late, because it kind of piggybacks what Jeanette just shared. Bo Watson, Senator Watson, is right now doing a series of listening tours, if you will. I just came from one out in Hickson, and they're looking at funding, and he wants to hear He wants to hear from us. There's two more. January the 27th, Highway 58 Volunteer Fire Department, 6 o'clock. And then his final one, February 4th, at Collegedale Commons. And I just left the one in Hickson, and there was probably 100 people there. So they're being well attended. I think maybe Miss Jeannie, you went to one the other night, but this is the time. This is the time for the public to jump in there, because nothing is decided. He's listening, and he wants to hear from everyone. So try to make one of those. And I know we pushed it out some. Sherry's been helpful in getting that word out, but we need to. If there's anything else we can do, Dr. Robertson, to push that out to our parents across the district, let's do that. And I'm sorry I was late, Ms. Chairman.
I was just going to say, we also have a working session, don't we, that's not listed here?
February the 14th.
That's right.
No.
that's
No,
the
we
board.
have February the
Oh, the
3rd.
one on the 2nd.
The
Yeah,
second.
this is the
Let's do
equity
that.
plan discussion, yes, Mrs. Jones.
Just one.
That's actually a committee meeting, that's not a work session.
Oh, okay. I thought it was-
But I'd like for everyone to be here, so come and work.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought it was a work
it's the
session.
equity discussion, but it's not
Right.
actually a work session.
So, one quick correction, Mr. Smith is correct about the sessions, however, he mixed those dates up. So we want you to be in the right place. We want you to show up and not be there. The 27th is Collegedale Commons. The 3rd, February 3rd, is the Harrison, Highway 58.
So I have
volunteer.
backwards.
Yeah, so he got them backwards. We want him to be in the right place. We don't want him to be over there and then be fussing at Senator Watson, right? So, yeah, just to do that. And please, I know we get a lot of, I want to say this too, we get a lot of calls and emails and texts and appearances and op-eds about having a virtual option. If we could have a virtual option, you all, we would. I want to make that clear. If we had the option, I'm pretty sure we probably would be able to fluctuate a little bit better. We do not have that option unless we do the waiver, which we are having to do, seems like day to day now. Unless we have the waiver, we don't have that option. And so we do want our children in school as much as possible, but we also want them healthy and safe. And so it's just very complex, but we cannot make that decision locally, okay? So I want people to understand that we hear you, so it's not that we're ignoring you. It's not that we just don't know another way to say it other than we don't get to make that decision. So I want to just make sure that the public understands that if we could, I think there probably would be enough support to do that. However, we are not able to do that. And so we're trying to do the best we can. I know, and it sounds really bad with what we have. And it is wearing on our staff. It is wearing on our support, our contract staff. I mean, it's wearing on everybody. So just know that we want to do what's best, and we hope that there is relief coming very, very, very soon.
Thank you. All right. Anything else? Okay. If not, then we're adjourned.